What's up guys, TSJAwesome 628 here, back again with another My Team Career Mode, this time for episode 2 for the Australian Grand Prix. We're going to go in and put one upgrade on the car I believe first, and we're just flicking through the updates to see which one's best. I know that Aero has the least failure chance, but we're already putting an extra upgrade on, so I thought this time I would go for the powertrain and get some better engine power. We're currently better than Alfa Romeo, has some Williams apparently, and just behind Alpha Tauri. So we can see whether we can beat them in the Australian Grand Prix.
Hey boss, I think we could better manage our time by organising some team activities.
We've paused the advance time here because we've realised that our resource points have increased again, and we can now afford a chassis upgrade for the car, which I'm going to put on. I think both of these won't be in time for Australia. I'm not even sure they'll be I think they'll just about be in time for Bahrain. I'm not sure though. So, but we're going to go to the race weekend, and as we load in, we look at the weather forecast, and it's going to be raining in the race. It's going to be dry right at the end of the race, but we have a wet race debut for TSJAwesome. I've done practice off track, so I got 1,000 odd resource points, so we're going to put a major upgrade, which can arrive in time for the Vietnam Grand Prix, I believe. Maybe it'll only be in time for the Chinese Grand Prix. Here we are for qualifying 1 then. We're going to go out for our first lap, and we'll see whether we can do well. Coming through the first 2 corners then, and a decent run through there. Maybe could have done better. I'm not going to show the whole lap, I'll just come to the final 2 corners, and I'm going to come around the final corner to set, well, not as quick as Leclerc, a 1:21.7, which is enough for P20. So we do need to go out again and improve, which we will do in the final 3 minutes of the session. So, about to start our lap. I hope that the car in front isn't going to be traffic, but it should be okay. Starting a lap with 1 minute to go, so this is our last attempt to go into turn 1. Gaining a bit of time on the exit, which is pretty good. We're just under a tenth up. And as we come around the final corner, gaining a lot of time in the final corner, and we've gone from about 3 tenths up to about 5 tenths up. And where will that put us? It won't be enough for Q2, but it's P18, which is decent for our first race. We're directly behind our teammate, who's in P17. Not much to split us. Australia isn't one of my strongest tracks, so I'm not expecting much. But Lance Stroll was only P19 in the racing point, and the Red Bulls seem to struggle in Q1 as well, with the Renaults being all the way up there in P5 and P7. But if we had gained another 10th, we would have been ahead of Romain Grosjean and into Q2. We now have to answer the interview questions from Claire, and I decided I was just going to answer all of them, even if they were going to harm the team McLean, just because that would make it more realistic. So we basically just say that Jack Aitken was more consistent, and that and look here, there's a guy just sitting on the water, like Jesus. He's a water legend. But
Mercedes start with victory in their bid to win a 7th consecutive Constructors' title? Could Ferrari or Red Bull establish an advantage early on? And with 22 cars on the grid, how quickly can the new team find their footing? Well, it's great to be back, Anthony Davidson. We've got a lot to talk about this year.
That's right, Crofty. It felt like a long winter, but it's good to finally be back. I have to think the usual suspects will battle it out at the front, but there are always going to be some teething problems early on in the season, so whoever can keep on top of their issues will have the advantage today.
As I mentioned earlier, we're up to 11 teams this season, with a new entry run by, well, of all things, an owner-driver. That's something we haven't seen in this sport since Hector Abac over 4 decades ago. So how are they looking so far?
It's hard to imagine how a small operation like that could survive in the ruthless world of Formula One. And yet here they are, first ever race, looking surprisingly strong. But there are no points for qualifying. Let's see how they fare in the Grand Prix proper.
With the race minutes
Now for the grid order today.
here's what today's grid rundown
So,
looks like.
I know that there's a qualifying theoretical glitch where Hamilton is on pole, Bottas is second, but Leclerc is in third, yet Vettel sets a quicker time than him, who's in fourth. Verstappen lines up P5, Albon 6th, Ricciardo and Ocon in 7th and 8th, and the McLarens in 9th and 10th. Perez is 11th, with Kvyat 12th, Gasly 13th, Giovinazzi 14th, Grosjean 15th, my teammate 16th, I am 17th, because Raikkonen took a 10-place grid penalty. I'm going on to the race strategy here, and I've selected this double 12-lap theoretical stint on Inters, so that we can then go on dries for the final stint of the race, because I don't think the Inters will make it directly into the dry period without a stop. So 5 lights, it's lights out, and away we go. We've got a good start here, but we're trying to gain a position on our teammate. Going into turn 1, go around the outside, and we get Giovinazzi here. We're now going side by side with Danny Kvyat. It's a bit slow on the exit, but he gets us back, and we dive down the inside of Pierre Gasly. There's a yellow flag out for some reason, but the green flag's back out, so we are allowed to overtake Gasly. And I was just checking my front wing because we could make a bit of contact. Run slightly wide at the corner, but we keep the position and we're up to P12. I'm going to see if we can chase down Perez now, but it's about 1.2 seconds up the road. I didn't know how I'd fare in these wet conditions, because other than the Hungarian Grand Prix that you saw that I did, I haven't driven in these conditions. But the gap to Perez isn't, well, it's coming down slightly, it's down to a second, but then we make a slight mistake on the exit of the corner when he gains 3/10 away from us. But it's staying pretty soon, but Gasly is right on the back of us. He's about 8/10 behind. And we go slightly wide through the hairpin. Perez pulls away again. And then through the final corner. But Gasly, with the Honda engine in his car and we have the Mercedes engine, just didn't have the straight line speed to make a move on us. So we're going to stay in P12 for the time being at least. Going slightly later into lap 2, and you can see Perez has already pulled away, and I don't think we're going to be challenging him for this race because he seems pretty quick, especially through sector 1. That's where I was losing the majority of my time. As you see, Gasly is all over the back of me, and we're getting a bit nerved by his car behind. But as you can see, with his Honda engine, he doesn't have enough to pull alongside me and make it. Obviously, going into that chicane is a very hard overtaking spot because you can't really run side by side through there without losing a lot of time. But as we head on to the start of lap 3, DRS would have normally been enabled, but obviously it's not enabled in wet conditions, which will help me to stay in front of Pierre Gasly. As you can see, we have a train behind us because we aren't very quick in these conditions. Gasly gets a decent run on us as we make a mistake through that right-hander, but this was one of the corners that I really struggled with. Well, compared to the AI. I don't really know why, I don't really know what I was doing wrong, but the AI just seemed to get a much better run through there than I did. And then we almost spun it on the exit, but Gasly didn't try and go for a move on us, so we keep the position. And this was like a recurring theme throughout the race, the fact that Gasly had the Honda engine and was struggling to pull on the side. We improved on our best lap though by about half a tenth, and on the following lap we improved by about 8/10 when we weren't being pressurised. And we're just going to stay ahead of Pierre Gasly, who hasn't really tried to overtake us yet. But we run slightly wide through that corner, but luckily Gasly can't keep his nose in there. He thinks about going for it, but I think backs out at the last second. And we move on to lap 5, and we see the news that Charles Leclerc is out of the session, and that will move us up another place as we go past the stricken Ferrari on the left hand side. Must have had some kind of mechanical issue, but that is a big retirement. Well, probably not for us because we won't be battling Leclerc at all this year, I doubt, but a big retirement in terms of what will happen in the championship. I believe the two Mercedes are still out in front in this race. We move on to lap 6, going through this corner again, which I was really struggling with. You can see Gasly just gets a much better run through it, but can't pull alongside. If there was a straight immediately after that corner, I think Gasly would have overtaken us about 3 laps ago, because he's getting a much better run through us as we hit the wall in the exit, and we're just checking to see if we've got any front wing damage, which we don't, which is okay. And Gasly is finally going to go for a move on us, but we fend him off as Hamilton sets the fastest lap. You can see the massive train behind us. You can see we're quicker than like the Williams cars and one other car with the Williams cars that are just slightly behind, but other than that, we don't really have much pace in this race. We're already 10 seconds behind Perez, and we're only starting lap 7. We do set a new personal best though, on 139.4, and we are keeping Gasly at bay. It's not like he's getting some really good opportunities to overtake us. He had one sort of look around the outside. And on the end of lap 7, we look like we're going to set another personal best. And this time we're going to improve by 8.5 tenths or so. So we're finding a bit of extra pace, but not compared to the Racing Point and McLaren of Perez and Norris ahead. Again, we're going to come through this corner, and you probably already guessed it, but Gasly's going to get a much better run and try and pressurise us going into the next corner, but he fails to, so we're going to hold the position. But can he get a better run going into the chicane? Because if he tries to overtake there, that could be an issue, but he didn't try and overtake there. So we're going to go on to onto this straight, and we're just going to pull away from him from the exit as Hamilton sets the fastest lap again. I think Hamilton is quite far in the lead of this race. We're going to set another personal best though at the end of lap 8, and it's just going to be by 2 tenths. Gasly is finally going to go for it, but he brakes quite early, and we just brake at our normal braking point. I thought he was just going to get us, but I didn't mean to dive it up all the way down to the side. I just broke at my normal braking point and we kept the position. But that was his best opportunity so far, so need to be aware that maybe he was using like overtake that lap and he hadn't previously been using it. This time it looks like he has a decent run on us, but he doesn't have the straight line speed to get us into the chicane. But there's a yellow flag as we run slightly wide, and I think someone has retired, but Gasly is also going to try and seize the opportunity. We're going to head round the outside of him and keep the position. And indeed there was a yellow flag, I think of one of the Haas cars, as we run wide again. And Gasly's going to try and go all the way around the outside, but that's not an overtaking spot. We keep the position, so a bit of chaos at lap 9. And indeed it was a Haas car, and it's Kevin Magnussen that's out of the race. And obviously we were 1.6 seconds slow on that lap with all the battle when we did with Gasly there. And Gasly gets another good run on us out of that corner, but we stick to the inside line and fend him off. But he could get a better run here, but it's on the exit of most of the vital corners that I feel like I get a much better run than Gasly on, and that means that he just, when he doesn't have the engine power to overtake us, the only thing he has to work with is the slipstream, which I'm not quite sure is enough for him. Obviously he had a couple of opportunities to overtake us. I would say 2 good opportunities where we defended, but he's going to go for it again here, round the outside again on lap 10. He's tried it at that corner last lap and he's tried it again at this lap, but we fend him off. But he could get a good run here, he could get a very good run here, but it seems like he's not making any inroads on it. If anything, the arrow is pointing he's now further away from us than he was. And through turn 1, well, we were quicker than him through there, but later into lap 11 and he's pressurising us yet again, but we run wide there slightly, but I don't think it's going to allow him to pull alongside as we stop him and we close the door on him. But he almost had a look on the exit of that corner. He's all over the back of us now as we are struggling for pace. We're already 20 seconds behind Sergio Perez, who is in P10. But I feel like if he would be pulling close and very close going to turn 1 but wouldn't quite have enough. Well, he has enough this time, but again I think we fend him off. But then on the exit of turn 2 here, he just can't get the exit. Like, he can't get the traction now. But we go very wide through that corner again. Same corner as per usual, where Gasly starts his attack on us. But then, will he be able to go for it into the chicane here? We're on to lap 12, so we're hitting this lap. And he's going to go for it here, into the chicane, and it's very hard to run side by side through here. And we may have accidentally spun him out. I didn't mean to do that. I just tried to take my line round the outside, and I think he slightly understeered, and I probably didn't leave him enough space to allow for understeer. But I think it was a racing incident. I'm not sure what you guys think. I didn't mean to do it. It's not like I tried to purposely take him out. But we're going to come into the pits at the end of this lap, and we do have a few seconds advantage over the cars behind because of Gasly's spin. But we're going to come on for another set of intermediates and hopefully get an undercut as well. Not really undercutting a car, just extend the gap on the cars behind. Because I think we'll have some pace on some fresh inters. We're in the negative for fuel for the first time this race, which will need to be sorted out at some point. We're going to stay in lean for a little bit just to get our fuel back up into the positive. But Raikkonen is just behind us, and he had obviously had a grid penalty, but I'm not sure. I think he may have made an early stop or something, because I don't understand why he'd be that far behind anyway, other than that. So we're going to have to be aware of Raikkonen, who may suddenly, if he doesn't need to stop before the intermediate period ends, then he's back in this race. But the end of lap 14, our teammates coming in, and we are setting a personal best, and we are gaining time. I think we are going to stay ahead of these guys. As we come around the final corner, what's our time going to be? And it's going to be a 36.1, and yes, on the fresh inters we could gain 2.2 seconds. But now, coming to the end of lap 15, and it's starting to dry up. You can see there's much less water on the track, and well, the rain's basically stopped. Don't think it's quite time for dries yet, but it probably will be in the next couple of laps, which then makes me think we probably could have made it to the dry conditions on one set of inters. Coming to the end of lap 16, and we're not going to be improving anymore, and I doubt many people will be, because it's drying up, so it's gone past the intermediate prime conditions, and then probably starting to overheat. But we're coming to the end of we're coming to the start of lap 18 now, and well, we're 25 seconds behind Perez. At the same time, we're then 4 seconds ahead of Raikkonen and 5 ahead of Fiat, so I'm in a good position. And lap 18 at the end, this was the call when I decided I was going to come in for dry tyres. TRS has not been enabled quite yet, but I felt that it was time for dry tyres, and Raikkonen behind us I think agreed, as did my teammate Jack Aitken, so we're going to be double stacking at TSJAwesome, so hopefully we can have a quick stop so we don't hold him up. And DRS has been enabled just after I made the call. We get a 1.9 second pit stop, which is an insane time for the boys. That's a great time. Hopefully we can get more of those. We come out in P15, and we've got Stroll and Latifi so that in front of us, so we know whether it was the right call. I believe it was the right call, otherwise I doubt the AI would have made it. But yeah, and you can see we set a purple middle sector, and we already gained so much time on Stroll and Latifi ahead, and we would overtake them on the following corner if they weren't going to come in this lap for dry tyres. So that was an issue. We couldn't quite get DRS because we weren't within a second when the activation point is, because the activation point is quite far back at Australia for going to the final couple of corners. But we are back to P11, about 17 seconds now at the end of lap 20 behind Norris, so we are gaining on him, but it won't be enough. And Raikkonen behind is slowly closing in on us. But we set the fastest lap of the race. You can write that down. I know it's changeable conditions and Raikkonen immediately sets it after us, but you can write it down in history books. We set the fastest lap of the race on our debut at one point in the race. We're going to come round, I believe like Hamilton or Bottas has already set the fastest lap. So I believe no matter how much we improve by, they probably already got fastest lap in the bag. So we can't. If the rain had come a bit later, or gone a bit later, then I feel like maybe we'd had a chance at fastest lap towards the end. We are slowly gaining, but we're pulling it. We're closing in on Norris slightly, but Raikkonen is also closing in on us, and it's looking alright. So the gap to Norris is about 16 seconds, but then the gap to Raikkonen is now 2 seconds as he's closing in rapidly. And the problem is that Raikkonen has a Ferrari engine and not a Honda engine, so he will have good straight line speed when he catches up to us. But Norris has slowly started pulling away again, and my tyres are starting to wear out, and that's something I realise that this car does not have good tyre wear, and that could be an issue. It has good pace, but its tyre wear isn't brilliant. Hamilton and Bottas are just both setting fastest lap after fastest lap. It was quite like every time we got, but it was a good record for me for how much time we were losing, because every lap they were setting fastest lap, so whatever corner they did it at, I knew how much time roughly I was losing. We get our first track extend morning of the race on lap 25, just turned in too early, and yeah, it was definitely a tracking send. But Raikkonen's inside our DRS zone, as we set a new personal best only by a 10th though. Raikkonen can't quite get us into turn 1 though, and we're good out of turn 2. We get a good exit out of there, so he can't get us into turn 3. But Raikkonen is all over the back of us, and it looks like he was about to go for the move into that corner after we struggled through the previous one. Dry conditions, wet conditions, it's all the same. Raikkonen looks like he's going to go for a move into the chicane, but we don't want to allow him to overtake in the chicane, because that will slow both of us up. He will probably get past us, but and as you see, as we get to the end of lap 26, he's already so close, and he just goes to the outside, and he's already ahead going into turn 1. There's not even a side-by-side moment, and Fiat is right behind us as well. What I didn't realise. We'll definitely beat Giovinazzi, but we're going to battle Fiat to the end, and he does have the Honda engine, but then he will have DRS in these conditions, so it may be hard to fend him off. But all in all, it will be a good debut for us, getting P12 or 13 on our debut. Wasn't quite the P11 that we held for most of the race, but Fiat's already going to go for it, and I knew by now that my tyres were really struggling. I'm not sure if I put the graphic up at some point, but I actually also think I may have cut something out, that my teammate Jack Aitken came into the pits again on around lap 25, I believe. I'm not sure if I missed it, but and that's what alerted me that he was struggling with tyres. I looked at my tyre wear and it was terrible, but I didn't want to stop again because that would put us so far behind, so I decided to stick out with these softs. But Fiat looks like he's got us here, but we go right the way round the outside there, and probably a bit of an aggressive move, but I wanted to keep the position. And here's the tyre wear, we're over 60% on these tyres, and usually I pitted around 50%, so I'd have probably pitted around lap 26, which is a lap after Aitken did. But we're going to head on to the final lap, and Fiat hasn't really challenged us into turn 1, so I believe we can hold the position. You can see how much Giovinazzi is closing in as Hamilton wins the race, but Bottas gets fastest lap. The Mercedes were in another planet today compared to everyone else. He's already won, we're going into turn 3, but then he also was so far ahead of Vettel, I believe, in third, or don't know if it was Verstappen, but they were so far ahead of everyone else. But we make a slight mistake through that corner, but it doesn't look like Fiat can capitalise on it. Well, we'll see, because we actually get a decent run through that corner. Well, I'm not sure if it's decent, but better than usual. So Australia is one of my weaker tracks, as Fiat goes for like a last lap lunge into the fast right-hander, but we're going to come round the final corner and we're going to claim P12 on our debut up to the line. Fiat thinks he can get a good enough exit and get us up onto the line, but it's not going to be enough for him, and we take P12 on our debut, which is pretty good. Kimi Raikkonen wins driver of the day. I already predicted that. So the final race results: Hamilton won from Bottas, but Bottas got fastest lap. Then Vettel was 25 seconds behind, and Verstappen was 29. And Ricciardo almost got Verstappen there. And then there was Ocon, who led Sainz and Albon in that sort of train. Then there was Perez and Norris to round off the points. Then Kimi Raikkonen got P11. I was P12. Fiat and Giovinazzi were P13 and P14. But, well, the driver standings basically stayed the same order that they were in the race. But Jack Aitken got P16 after doing 3 stops, along with Grosjean and Gasly, who also did, and Russell, who also did 3 stops. Magnussen and Leclerc were the only DNFs in the race, obviously. Shame probably for Ferrari and for Leclerc, if they want to try and challenge Mercedes this year, they're going to need some big results. But Mercedes lead the constructors, and Renault are in P2 after their. I think they were 4th and 5th. No, they were. Where were they? 5th and 6th. That's where they were. And Red Bull were 3rd, and Ferrari were 4th. But we obviously didn't score any points, so we'll hope to do that in the future. But we were ahead of Haas, Williams, and AlphaTauri. We just complemented the powertrain, Leclerc lost us, and I then complimented the team when she asked us about how my car control was. Then I thought the best answer for this was just none of us want to back down, which is true. I didn't want to back down. I wanted to take my normal line through corners, and I agree that it wasn't the cleanest race today. But our team is now level 2 in sponsor, so we will be able to sign a secondary sponsor for next episode. I am only level 1, yet Jack Aitken is level 5, which is a bit surprising. But I'll leave this episode here, and I will see you guys next time for the Bahrain Grand Prix.